The grievance story is a part of our narrative that we tell ourselves to explain um, uh, the injustices that we've had throughout our lives, particularly those in childhood due to abuse, neglect, abandonment, or enmeshment, too much closeness. So you can have too little and too much and still have problems as a result. And the grievance story is a collection of experiences from that sort of combine both grief, sadness, and resentment as a mixture together, and a cocktail we call grievances. And grievances at their at their worst moments sort of freeze or lock us down into rigid ways of viewing the world. Everybody's against me. I never get a fair shot, or I'm entitled. I can do what I want. I can have sex with who I want. I can eat what I want. I am entitled because of my injustices. So the grievance story is so critical to unlock within you how you narrate it, because it's probably what you tell yourself about the collection of injustices that you've had along the way, including those that might have happened in adulthood. And by understanding the grievance story, we have a better opportunity not to repeat it or not to act it out. So usually you have two outcomes that are dysfunctional out of the grievance story. One is to find ourselves frequently playing the role or being in the role of the victim. You know, somebody doesn't understand me, somebody's not giving me attention, always the one doing the giving and the loving and the caretaking. What about me, right? So there's this sort of narrative that the world never quite delivers to me what I deserve, and I keep trying harder to please other people, quote unquote codependency, whatever you want to call it, never seems to work out, and I keep adding to my grievance story, and I keep feeling less and less empowered. The other side of the coin is those who may do um, more of a sense of entitlement. I'm angry. I'm entitled. Um, I have, I give myself permission to cross sexual boundaries with other people or masturbate to porn, even though I have an implicit or explicit contract of fidelity with my partner or my faith. So sometimes we can see the grievance story as kind of a sort of a fireball of anger that justifies our behaviors that violate us or other people. And sometimes we can see people sort of doing a yin yang, sometimes playing the role of the victim and sometimes playing the role of the entitled offender. So the grievance story is critical to understanding um, those patterns of behavior and beginning to hear it, you know. So I can hear it sometimes, for example, when I'm going along in my day and my wife does something, she goes left rather than going right when I think she should go right. And I have this sort of grievance story about the way I was raised with my mother and the dysfunction in my family. And pretty soon, my wife's minor infraction in her journey that has a minimal effect on me sort of latches onto that grievance in me. And pretty soon, I'm judging her and I'm having a harsh reaction. And by understanding my grievance story, I can temper myself. I can say, okay, Adams, hold on a minute. That's your grievances. It's way overstated for the moment. I don't need to hold my wife in anger or contempt. She's done nothing. That's your grievances that you carry within. So we often can project or displace those grievances onto others when they frankly don't belong and overreact or overdetermine that the person is responsible for the grievance. Or the opposite, we may go numb to people who are hurting us or violating us. So both of those extremes can happen. So that's my take on grievances, and I know that Fresh Start has been working very diligently on creating a set of exercises to help you guys break down your grievances so that you don't play them out, for example, in the treatment program. So on occasions, we have people come in with high degrees of grievances and injustices, and I never get my fair share. And pretty soon they're blaming their fresh start process of not delivering enough. We can see that it's the little boy inside, the childhood grievance story being projected out. So we want you to kind of check in with your own, to know what your grievance story is, name it, and begin to put it in check. Otherwise, it's going to ride roughshod over you. Well, I said resentment. So I kind of I use grief and sadness as one, and then I use resentment and anger as the other. So essentially, the grievances is a cocktail of grief and resentment. If to kind of simplify it, it's the collection of losses and resentments around felt injustices that we kind of merge together in a new cocktail. I'm aggrieved. I have grievances. Well, I think behind all grievances is a deep sadness and a good cry about what didn't transpire that should have, what violated me that shouldn't have. And so sometimes, not sometimes, below the grievance story is a storehouse of pain, anguish, sadness that needs its own fair witnessing. I like that term, fair witnessing, where somebody or some bodies of people in your group are fair witnesses to your grief and loss so that you feel some validation so that you don't always have to hold tightly to the resentment around that. Need a good therapeutic dive into it, which you'll do with Fresh Start, which you want to break down the list work of losses and legitimate resentments, right? So your resentments are not illegitimate just because we're calling them out on the table as a grievance story. So ideally, you want to parse out the losses, you want to parse out the anger, and then you want to give it some expression, right? You want to have some fair witnessing in your group process, some discharge of feelings, some stories that go around those losses, telling people about why you have carried them, and then so you need to decompress some of the energy around that is what I'm saying, and
Sure.
you'll do that with the experiential work that you're lined up for here in Fresh Start. And then I would start to give it a name and identify it, and you might need to check in on a daily basis with it. So in your prayer meditation in the morning or whatever, you spend a couple quiet minutes just saying, okay, there you are, I hear you. You want to make the world against you today, but you know what? I'm gonna have a different outlook. So I hear you. So you're having a dialogue with that part, right? You're saying, I hear you, but I can't let the entire world come through your eyes. Let me sort this for you. So you're going to be the good father to that part of you, right? We might assign that the little boy, if you will, inside of you. So that's what I would do. I would start check. So if you have a grievance story that's been around for a while, it's not going away anytime soon. You can that's the good news, and the good news and the bad news is you can identify this, but if it's probably if it's that determinate in you, it's probably going to be there, particularly under stress and where there's some legitimate mm, you know difficulties, right? And it's hard to process. I remember I can tell you a quick story. So my wife and I and my son, it was years ago when he was younger. We all have a bit of intensity in our temperaments, right? So the morning is going on, and everybody's doing their own thing, and I'm having to do more than my share of what needed to happen to get out of the house. And I could hear my grievances. Damn it, there it is. I'm doing all the work. These two don't care. Blah 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 blah. So I'm going. And so by the time I get out of the house, I'm angry, and we have a few words between us, my son and I, and my wife and I, and it leaves. So in the 10th step of the 12-step program, Save Me, made direct amends to people, except no, continue to take personal inventory. When we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And I thought to myself, it doesn't say anything in there about taking other people's inventory. It says, I take my inventory. So I texted my son and my wife a heart. You know, I thought I can do this again. So, and we had a nice exchange, by the way. So, you know, I was able to check my grievances. Okay, I can ride this horse all day long and be pissed all day long and overeat and lose track of being attentive with my clients, or I can put that grievance aside and I can extend myself in love and make a corrective step. Now,